A ruling handed down in a landmark case today involving an immigration matter. Good evening, everyone. I'm LaDawn Davis. Bahamian-born Roney Charles has been granted permission to remain and work here in the Bahamas. This after a Supreme Court judge handed down his ruling in the controversial matter. DeAndre Williamson was in court for the hearing this morning, and she leads us off tonight.
I am, on behalf of Mr. Roney Charles, very pleased with the judgment.
Supreme Court Justice Gregory Hilton, in his ruling, allows Bahamas-born Roney Charles to legally seek gainful employment in the Bahamas, but has stayed the prior portion of that ruling, requesting the government to grant status to Charles. His attorney Fred Smith says this ruling puts Charles back in the position he was in before he was unlawfully arrested and deported.
Justice Hilton has maintained his judgment, which we consider to be a very powerful statement on constitutional rights. And we, of course, look forward to the appeal. I want to emphasize that this judgment is about due process. It is about immigration following the procedures set out in the Immigration Act, the Criminal Procedure Code, and the Constitution. It's very simple. It's not complicated.
Attorney General Carl Bethel says the ruling is meaningful to the government's public duty.
We are happy on that point that in substance the government is not bound to grant any immediate status pending the resolution of the Court of Appeal hearing in this matter. So, we were directed to do something forthwith and not more than 60 days after his return.
He says once the appeal is over and whether the government wins or not, the issues concerning an applicant's status should be reviewed.
To be mandated to grant status is, in our view, would be contrary to our public duty. Our public duty is to consider all of the relevant information once an application is made. Once an application is made, the state has established precedents and procedures to decide appropriately in its own discretion what is the fairest or right or most correct way to deal with the matter.
He said it is important to recognize the legal process and give respect to the judges and attorneys involved in the process.
At the end of the day, it's only by a system of law that we can have order. It's only by a system of law that we can have justice and democracy. And, we may not often agree with rulings that courts make, but they make them. And there is a process, the legal process, by which you can appeal them and have some other court look at it if you don't like it.
Last year, Charles was arrested, detained, and deported to Haiti, but brought back to the Bahamas. He did not appear in court for the ruling, but his attorney had this message for the government.
Rights Bahamas is going to take these cases before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and the United Nations Human Rights Commission to sue the government internationally on the basis that even though the Supreme Court of the Bahamas has again and again and again and again and again in dozens of cases continued to affirm the right of every person to due process in the Bahamas.
However, attorney Fred Smith urges the Department of Immigration to clean up and stop arresting people who are born in the Bahamas. For ZNS Network News, I'm DeAndre Williamson.